Hey guys, it's Coach Benny, and we got a real fun one for you today because today I'm going to be teaching you how to throw a better fastball. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing to do before you even start trying to improve upon your fastball is identifying what kind of fastball do you even throw. Now, generally speaking, there's about three types of fastballs. You have your high ride fastball, you have your what I like to call cut ride fastball, and then you have your sinking and or running fastball. Now, understanding what kind of fastball you throw can be difficult without any fancy tools or equipment, but that's where this thing comes into play. All I did here was take a piece of electrical tape and tie it around a baseball. You can do the same thing with other tapes. You could even take a string. I've even seen people grab a Sharpie and just color in a line throughout the middle of the fastball. Now that you do that, go out there, play catch, and just take a mental note of what that line is doing as you're playing catch. But I'm going to break down what each fastball should look like as we get later into the video. All right, so now let's get into our first one, which is your high ride fastball. Now you're going to be a high ride kind of fastball guy if when you're playing catch with this ball, you see it very well backspun. If you see that black line relatively vertical, it can be a little bit off to the side, but relatively vertical, and it's spinning cleanly at you. Now it can wobble a little bit, but for the most part, you want that ball spinning fairly cleanly back at you. If your fastball looks like that, pay attention to this part of the video. If you can get access to your spin numbers, these are the spin numbers that you're going to want to see. You're going to want to have high RPMs. Typically speaking, if you're an MLB level guy, you should be spinning it around 2250 as high as possible. But 2250 average is about your floor if you throw this in an MLB guy. High school level, college level, high school, you could probably get away with around 1900. College level, you're probably going to still want to be around the 2150 mark at the minimum. Now, spin direction. When you see your numbers on the spin, you're going to want to be able to tell that it's between a 12 o'clock and a 1:30. As a righty, if you're a lefty, just go backwards into the other direction. So you're going to want it to be between about 10:30 and 12 o'clock. What that looks like is that ball is spinning either here or here, but relatively right here. And when you're throwing this pitch, you want to get your efficiency as high as possible. Now, if you don't have access to any of this fancy equipment, all you need to know is when you're playing catch and when you're throwing a bullpen, that ball is spinning with a very, very straight line. And the better your fastball is going to be determined on how cleanly this spins. And if you have access to these fancy spin numbers, you're going to want your gyro to be as low as possible because you want all of the force and all of the spin on the ball to be backspun right behind that x-axis. Now, that's what it's going to look like relatively on your little 3D projection of the ball movement. But relatively speaking, all you want it to be doing is spinning cleanly with that back line. Ways to improve upon that, if you're a guy who's doing this and want to improve that pitch, is just really focus on painting the ball with your hand. Rip it every single time you throw it, but try to paint that ball off your fingertips. Paint that ball off your fingertips until you see that black line cleanly spinning every single time. All right, now if that last part of the video didn't apply to a guy like you, maybe this one will. These are your cut ride fastball guys. Now your cut ride fastball guys are typically your hardcore supinators that spin the crap out of the ball and throw it really hard. It's a difficult pitch to master, but if you can figure out how to throw that pitch, if you naturally throw that fastball, man, the ceiling is insane. This is the kind of fastball that you see really high-end guys like Emmanuel Clase A throw. They cut ride the fastball, and it's impossible to get on top of. It's impossible to barrel that ball. But what does a cut ride fastball even look like? A cut ride fastball, if you're playing catch with this ball, it's going to wobble pretty hardcore. It's going to be difficult to distinguish that line, but you should still see some sort of semblance with it. Now, if you're looking at your numbers and you're trying to figure out what kind of guy you are, a cut ride guy is going to be a guy who spins it pretty well. You know, if you're a high schooler, you should probably be spinning it around 1900. If you're a low-end college guy, probably around that 2150 to like 2300 level. If you're a high-end college guy, you should probably be around 2250 all the way to whatever. Now, your spin direction doesn't matter that much as a cut ride guy. You can be a plus or minus 2 on your spin direction, and your efficiency, this is where it's golden. Because if you were higher than 85, I would tell you to can be in a cut ride guy and just immediately convert into a high ride fastball guy. But if you're not that, because you're a hardcore supinator who always gets around the baseball when you're throwing it, that's probably where you're going to be. Anything below 70, you're getting into danger zone. You're just throwing a really hard slider. Anything above 85, just be a high ride fastball guy. But typically, you're going to be in your efficiency level of 85 to 70, and your gyro should be around middle ground. You should be around that like 25 to 40 range. Now, you don't have any access to these numbers and you think you're a cut ride fastball guy, this is kind of the indicators to tell. Do you pull your fastball all the time? Like when you miss, do you just cut the crap out of it and spike it in the other's batter's box? And if you're a lefty, do you spike it in the other's batter's box that way? That's going to typically be your cut ride guys. They throw hard, they have naturally good arms, but it kind of is inconsistent with its movement. Now, the best way to think about this to optimize if you're a cut ride guy is just to always throw the crap out of the ball and blow up the middle of the zone. Don't be afraid of getting around it and just rip the crap out of it. Or alternatively, if you can't figure that out, turn yourself into a seam shifted two-seam guy who just cuts the crap out of it, but gets it off that middle finger to make it run. Now, if you want any more clarity on this, feel free to DM me and hit me up and I can give you more clarity. But cut ride is probably the hardest one to master because these are the guys that are the epitome of I grip it and I rip it. All right, that brings us to our last guy, who is our sinking and or running fastball guy. Now, typically speaking, these are going to be the guys who pronate the ball really well, have relatively decent command, and are usually just naturally good pitchers. Even when they were little, they were still pretty good at pitching. Now, if you're metrically looking at your numbers and wondering if you're that guy, the RPMs are who cares. Because typically speaking, your sinking and running guys are sinking and running guys because they just didn't spin the ball well. And this is how you succeed the best if you don't spin the ball that well. Not spinning the ball well doesn't mean you can't succeed as a pitcher. It just means that you're put in a box of this is how you need to throw in order to succeed. So if you don't spin it well, become this guy. Pitch like this guy. Your RPMs are going to be who cares. Yes, there's exceptions to the rules of guys who spin it well and or sinking and running guys. But for the most part, if you don't spin it well, be this guy. Now, when you throw the baseball, this is going to be the baseball where the black line is relatively out here somewhere and it's spinning relatively cleaning. That ball runs a little bit, especially when you long toss, it almost lollipops right to the guy who's catching it. But you're typically going to see it here and you're going to want to backspin that thing perfectly. Now, when you went out to test it, and if you're wondering if you're this guy, it doesn't matter if you spun it super well here, but you spinning it, you see it kind of spin off at this angle. Sure, it wobbles a little bit, but you see it spin off this angle. And if you do that, going forward, try to backspin this thing as cleanly as possible because you're going to want that efficiency as high to 100% as possible. But your spin direction, you're going to want that about plus or minus an hour and a half, depending on if you're a lefty or a righty. If you're a righty, you're going to want it around above 130. The lower that you can get, kind of the better, because if you can backspin that ball this way and get that insane run to it, that's where you're going to generate the most whiffs. And your gyro, you're going to want this as low as possible. But typically speaking, anyone who doesn't spin the ball really well, you want to turn into this guy. And if you can't generate it because your natural arm path is up here, if it's up here, then you're going to want to start turning yourself into a two-seam or a sinker guy who's able to get around the baseball here and let it come off naturally, pronate through, and get that sinker to run. Because flat out speaking, it's a little bit of a brutal truth in baseball. If you don't spin it well, you kind of have to be a sinker or runner guy if you want to compete at the highest level possible. All right, guys. So I know I just threw a lot at you there. But to kind of shortly summarize, unless you're at that high-end college level or the professional level, all you really need to do is find the fastball that you throw and just make that fastball the best version of itself. Because the last thing you need to do at a younger age is try to overcomplicate what kind of fastball do you throw? Because your fastball should be your easy pitch. It should be your pitch that you pick up and you can nail the catcher every single time. So just find what kind of fastball you throw and do that really well. So if you're a guy who runs it really well, try to run it better. If you're a guy who it rides really well, try to ride it better. If you're a guy who just grips it and rips it and it kind of cuts a little bit, be that guy and just blow up the middle of the zone. And I promise you, you're going to be content with yourself at the end of the day. But that's all I got for you today, guys. I've been Coach Benny. Please like and subscribe. And if you ever want personalized coaching tips, be sure to click the link in my bio. See you next time.